Yo, what is going on, guys, and welcome back to another Lost Ark video. Today I'm going to be going over the builds for Soul Eater, the brand new class that came out today in the Western version of Lost Ark. So for all of you who are looking to make a brand new Soul Eater with the Power Pass and the Super Makoko Express, or if you're just wondering how they play, I'm going to give you guys a very basic overview of how they work, the skills, and the best in-slot builds for both the class engravings. So very quickly, Soul Eater has three different types of skills. So I'm going to call them purple skills, which are called gassed skills, blue skills, which are called Stygian skills, and pink skills that are called Deathlord skills. Deathlord skills, aka, like I said, the pink skills, are your highest damaging abilities, and so accessing them optimally is done in different ways depending on your class engraving. You also have two forms of meter. You have the soul stones and you have your secondary identity gauge. Soul stones are used to empower your pink skills, and the identity gauge gives you access to a special stance, basically a burst mode that does different things depending, again, on your class engraving. So let's get started talking about the different builds for both classes. The first one I'm going to go over is Knight's Edge. This is the crit swift variant, and it's also called Dark Moon in Korea, so if you've ever heard that term, this is the build that it's referring to. With this engraving, you should only be using your pink skills when all three of your soul stones are full, as it does empower their damage, and then using your pink skills fills up your secondary meter. Once that meter is fully filled up, you automatically become possessed, basically. While you're possessed, you're in this special state. You can no longer use your pink skills, but the cooldown and damage of your other skills is dramatically increased. As for your stats, this again is a crit swift build, and you're actually free to choose whatever ratio you want, although the meta ratio for your stats is mainly to go full crit and sub swiftness, only having swift in your necklace and your bracelet. However, if you don't like going full crit, you want a little bit more swiftness, or just want to toy around with different ratios, a general good rule of thumb that I can give you is that if you have 50% or more of your stats into swiftness, then you're going to want to go the hallucination relic set to make up for the crit, and then if you have more than 50% of your stats allocated into crit, then you're going to want to go the nightmare set to make the most of your damage. For your skills, you're going to be using Lunatic Edge with damage amplifications, Shadow Snatch, and Deathlord's Appearance, Guillotine Swing with either concussion or weak point enhancement, depending if you need stagger or destruction. In the second row of tripods, you can use any of the three tripods. The one on the right, called Cross Swing, is the fastest one with the fastest animation, however it has the lowest damage. The one in the middle is the slowest one, but it has the highest damage, and the one on the left, weak point detection, is the one that kind of has in-between damage as well as in-between animation speed. And then for the last row, you're going to choose Phaeton's Red Moon. For Reaper's Scythe, you're going to use Tenacity in the first row, and in the middle row, you can either use Weak Point Detection, which keeps it as a normal skill, or you can use Condensed Soul, which changes it into Charge Mode, which has higher damage. And in the last row, you're going to use Phaeton's Red Moon once again. For Vestige, you can use either Mind Enhancement or Weak Point Enhancement if you need more destruction, Concentrated Attack, and then 2 souls. For Soul Drain, you're going to use Mind Enhancement, Gravedigger, and Death's Grudge. For Lethal Spinning, you'll use Keen Strike, Weak Point Detection, and Deathlord's Appearance. For Harvest, you'll use Quick Prep, Day of Anguish, and Deathlord's Appearance. And for Rusted Nail, you'll also use Quick Prep and Smite Location, or you can alternatively use Tenacity if you need push immunity. Now, if you're playing the Hallucination build or a higher Swiftness build, you'll have to choose between Reaper's Scythe and Vestige as your second pink skill. And since you're only running 2 pink skills, you'll also have to choose between Astaros and Death Order. I recommend Astaros as it has more damage and it has mobility built into it as well, but you can have your pick at these two options. Out of all these tripods, the most important ones that you need to focus on are the DPS tripods, the damage increasing tripods for all of your pink skills, Harvest and Lethal Spinning, and then also Lunatic Edge wants nimble movement at max, since that does give you 19% movement speed, and if you're not going full swiftness, this is going to help you and is required to keep up raid captain effectiveness. For your awakening, I recommend using Deathbringer. If you're using the nightmare set, you need to use your awakening right at the beginning of the fight anyway. So using this awakening gives you 3 soul stones immediately, so you can start the fight with some damage from your awakening as well as a pink skill, which obviously is more meter, so you basically start really strong. Even when you're in hallucination, again, it gives you full soulstone meter, so it is still my recommended option. For your runes, I recommend running Conviction on Soul Drain and Judgment on Lunatic Edge to proc it, Galewind on Vestige, Reaper Scythe, Asteros, and Harvest, Focus runes on Lethal Spinning and Guillotine Swing, and then Bleed or Quick Recharge on Rusted Nail, depending on your preference. For your gems, you're going to want a damage and CDR gem on Lunatic Swing, Vestige, Reaper Scythe, Lethal Spinning, and Harvest, and a CDR gem on Lunatic Edge. Now for your engraving, if you're using the event, you get to choose 5 free engravings, so you should take Knight's Edge, Grudge, Keen Blunt, Raid Captain, and Adrenaline. However, if you later on want to build, whenever the event ends, or you want to build your accessories beyond the 5-3 that the event gives you, my recommendation is to run Knight's Edge, Grudge, Keen Blunt, Raid Captain, and Cursed Doll with Adrenaline 1, and some people can opt to go for either Predator 1 for long-form endgame content like upcoming raids. For your gear set, like I said earlier, my recommendation is that if you're running more than 50% of your stat distribution on Swiftness, go Hallucination, and if you have more than 50% of your stat distribution on Crit, then you can go Nightmare. Nightmare is the optimal choice, it is the highest damage, so that is my recommendation. For your cards, super standard here. If you have Light of Salvation 30 or, Kazuro's Legion Commanders 30, use that. If you don't have it, then use Deep Dive. If you don't have Deep Dive, use Lost Wind. And if you don't have Lost Wind, then you can go Star of Destiny. Moving on to the spec build, which is the more popular build, Full Moon Harvester. This one sounds a little complicated when I try to explain it, but it's honestly very, very simple, okay? When you're playing Full Moon Harvester, your pink skills only require 1 soulstone to cast, and whether they hit or not, they will always generate 5% of your secondary gauge. Now, once that gauge is full, you can activate it on command, and that will reset your pink skill cooldowns. The class engraving also increases your pink skill damage by 15%, and their cooldown is reduced by 70% when you go into that form. So basically, you build up soulstones, you use your pink skills. Once you've used up your pink skills and your meter is full, pop your meter so you can use your pink skills again, and then you just rinse repeat, building up meter to expend soulstones, go into your form, use the pink skills again. Just do that over and over and over again. Now, while you're in your identity, the enhanced state, you have 10% increased attack speed, 20% increased movement speed, and crit rate. The class engraving also gives you 14% crit rate. Your identity also ends after 13 seconds have passed, or if you cast 3 pink skills. So for your stats, you're going to want full spec with only crit on your necklace and bracelet. For your full moon skills, you're going to be using Lunatic Edge with damage amplification and Shadow Snatch. Again, for Guillotine Swing, you can choose either concussion or weak point depending if you need stagger or destruction. And just want to say again, for the second row of tripods, you can choose whichever one. Just keep in mind that the one in the middle, Scaffold, is the slowest one, but it has the highest damage. The one on the right is the fastest one, but it has the lowest damage. And the one on the left has the in-between of those two, which is the one I am recommending. For your third tripod, you can use Otherworldly Monarch. For Reaper Scythe, you're going to choose Tenacity, Condensed Soul, and Otherworldly Monarch. For Vestige, you can choose either Mind Enhancement or Weak Point Enhancement if you need more destruction for your raid encounter. For your second row, you're going to choose Concentrated Attack, and then 2 souls in your third row. For Soul Drain, you'll want Soul Reversal, Gravedigger, and Death's Grudge. For Death Order, you'll need Soul Reversal, Long Order, and Weak Point Detection. For Astaros, you're going to be using Concussion, Possession, and Delaying Shackles. However, you can also swap to Misery on the third row. However, keep in mind that this is going to give you a debuff where you take 12% more damage. However, this does decrease the cooldown by 8 seconds, so you can actually replace the cooldown gem for Astaros for a damage gem. And finally, we have Gluttony with Soul Reversal, Tenacity, and Onyx Moon Energy. As for your most important tripods, Nimble Movement on Lunatic Edge again is pretty mandatory for both builds, so I would say this is one of the tripods you must have. You also obviously want all of the damage increase tripods on your pink skills, and very, very important, your meter gain tripods on Death Order, Soul Drain, and Gluttony. For your Awakening, you want to use The End. It simply just does more damage. That's literally it. It just does more damage. For your runes, you're going to want Wealth on Death Order, Soul Drain, Astaros, Gluttony, and Guillotine Swing in quality order. So your highest Wealth rune, you want to have it on Death Order, and then your weakest Wealth rune, you want to have it on Guillotine Swing in this order. You also want Galewind on Vestige and Reaper Scythe, and Bleed or Purify on Lunatic Edge. As for your gems, you're going to want a damage and CDR gem on your 3 pink skills, so Guillotine Swing, Reaper Scythe, and Vestige, and a CDR gem on all of your other skills. In other words, get a CDR gem for all of the skills you're using and a damage gem for your 3 pink skills. For your engravings, like I said, the Super Makoko Express event allows you to pick 5 for free. 4 of those are kind of set in stone, which are Full Moon, Grudge, Keen Blunt, and Raid Captain. However, if you're running Hallucination, you want to run Cursed-All, and if you're running Nightmare, you can alternatively run Adrenaline instead of Cursed-All. However, once you move beyond the event and you want a +1 or +2, you would have Cursed-All, and then Adrenaline is a +1 or +2 if you have a 9/7 stone. Now, I know a lot of people are going to ask questions about Hitmaster. Now, for the Crit Swift build, you cannot run Hitmaster because a lot of your skills have a directional modifier that you cannot overwrite. However, for the spec build, the only skills that really matter here are the ping skills, and 2 of them don't have a directional. Reaper Scythe does have a directional. However, the reason I don't recommend Hitmaster is because if you want to use the non-directional version of Reaper Scythe, you have to take off the Tenacity Tripod, which gives you push immunity. This skill has the longest animation out of all of your skills, and it's your second highest damaging skill. So you want to make sure that it lands, and having the Tenacity Tripod helps with that tremendously. Headmaster also does not increase your awakening damage or your bleed rune damage, and I know that everybody hates Cursed-All, but it is the optimal choice, so I'm not really going to recommend running Headmaster. As for your gear set, if you are 1540 or below, or you want a high average DPS or a high floor DPS, then I recommend going Hallucination. It's just a much easier build to play, and it doesn't have as many restrictions or things that you have to worry about. It simply just works. However, if you have high enough crit rate, around 80%, and you want a high ceiling, then I recommend Nightmare. The thing about Nightmare is that it does require boundless managing, so that can be difficult for some players, and it is annoying, to be honest. So those are basically my recommendations. If you're just starting out, just use Hallucination, and then once you get to 1540 and above and you start min-maxing your Soul Eater, then you can swap into Nightmare if you want. You don't have to, but you can, and that is what most people end up doing as they chase the higher ceiling. As a little bonus, I want to give you guys a little tip for min-maxing your rotation. This class doesn't really have any strict rotations, even in the Crit Swift build. Some people will say it has a stricter rotation. Generally speaking, you can just get away with doing whatever, especially in the spec build. It doesn't really matter. But when you activate your identity in the spec build, you will reset the cooldown of all of your ping skills. So if you want to be super optimal, what you want to do is proc Lunatic Edge for applying your synergy, as well as giving yourself movement speed for Raid Captain, and then casting Guillotine immediately into Deathlord mode. This game does not snapshot, meaning it checks for damage every single sec. So Guillotine, once you enter Deathlord mode, by the time that it lands, this actually will benefit from the buffs of being inside of Deathlord mode, including the movement speed, the crit rate, and the increased pink damage skills. Another thing is you don't want to cast Guillotine as the last skill inside of your Deathlord mode, because once you cast the 3rd skill, remember, you exit automatically upon casting 3 pink skills. The moment you cast it, you will lose your transformation, and since Guillotine does have that delay from when you cast it till it lands, it won't actually get the buff from being inside of your Deathlord mode. So ideally, you want to cast Guillotine at the beginning or in the middle. Cards, exact same thing. LOS, Deep Dive, Lost Wind, Star of Destiny. Now finally, for Chaos Dungeons, I'm going to show you guys 10 skills. Just pick whichever 8 you want. Doesn't matter which 8 you pick, you'll do fine. I also recommend running Full Moon for Chaos Dungeons, ironically the spec build, because you only have to use 1 Soul Stone. So even if you built Crit Swift, I still recommend just running for Chaos Dungeons. So even if you're playing Night's Edge, you can just run without the class engraving at all, and just run like Contender, Preemptive Strike or something. Or you can just, slap on a Full Moon, and you'll be good to go. Well guys, those are the builds for Soul Eater. I hope I explained things well, and that you guys were able to get it. I hope this helps you build your Soul Eater. If you have any questions, I will be streaming for the next 2 or 3 days on Twitch, so feel free to come by the chat and hang out. I'll be playing Soul Eater and doing all sorts of things. So yeah, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one. Take care.